Hello and welcome to episode number 5 of Just Shillin'. I am one of your hosts, Sean Hoffman, and across the table from me is Mr. Andy Bell. How are you doing?
5 golden rings. I'm good, thank you, buddy. How are you?
I thought you were going to keep going. I'm good. I'm really good. No complaints.
Excellent. Good. So, yeah, no, we're well over here as well. Coming to the end of the dreary month of February. I can see light at the end of the tunnel. I think I said to you last week, we've booked a holiday, so there's something to look forward to. And then one thing I didn't tell you last week, which I'd completely forgotten about, we're going to the theatre this weekend. So we're going to take in some culture this weekend with Lucy, which I think is actually going to do us a favour because obviously there's been a lot going on with family and with work in recent weeks. So it's going to take our minds off that and take in a little bit of culture, which will make Lucy very, very happy. And it just so happens to be the theatre just so happens to be close to one of the largest fantasy and comic and pop culture stores in the UK, which I know you've been to, Forbidden Planet. It's not too far away from Forbidden Planet. So it's very, very fortuitous that we might actually pop in there as well. So high five all round. It's going to be a good weekend. So looking forward to it.
It's almost like you planned it.
Yeah. I'm not that clever. But no, we're all good, mate. And it's the buds have started budding on my apple trees, which suggests that it's getting a little bit warmer, and we're approaching spring in the UK. The family situation that I talked about last week is getting a little bit easier. We know we're in for the long haul, but there seems to be a plan and coming out the other end of the reorganization at work. So yeah, it's been a tough couple of months, mate, but I'm optimistic. There's like I said, there's light at the end of the tunnel, so life is good.
Nice. It's awesome to hear. You'll be happy to hear that we've booked a holiday as well. Kind of a bit unexpected, but it's funny it comes up because it was actually a thing that we won at like a blind charity auction a couple 2 years ago, like a local charity event thing, and we actually won a trip to Mexico, and so
Nice.
we're like we should probably like do that before they don't honor it anymore. So we're doing that in a couple weeks, or I don't know. I don't even know when it is. I'm not the one booking it, but I know I'm going to show up and be there. So that's cool. We're excited about that. Be nice to get out of the snow and get some warm weather and
yeah, absolutely.
enjoy all
that
that.
sounds awesome. Yeah, make the most of it, especially if it's free. That's fantastic.
Yes, sir. Yes,
So
sir.
so little of everything in life is. So yeah, make the most of it, my friend.
I will try my best to remember the details of this vacation. I will try.
And do not take the cats this time.
No cats. They can stay. They can stay here. They will stay here. They will be well looked after by probably the neighbors and their lovely cats, and they get some good bonding time.
Right.
I think there's only a couple of things that I have going on. I've also had I don't know if I don't know if it will how well it translate, but I've also had all of my Girl Scout cookie orders delivered from all the people that I order them from, and consuming all of those has been fantastic. Or biscuits. I don't know.
I was going to. That's
them.
what I was going to slip into because you've had it in the show notes for the last 2 weeks, and I keep forgetting to ask you what that's about. So I'm glad you explained. All I keep seeing is cookies. It's like, yes, please. What do you mean? What do you mean?
I always feel like I'm always afraid that like I'm not going to get offered, like somebody's not going to have like their kid in Girl Scouts, and I'm not going to get the link, or I'm not going to see him at the grocery store outside selling them. So I'm like, whenever I get one from somebody, I'm like, oh, I better order it now, because you never know. Like this may be the only time. But then I order them, and then another one comes in. I was like, well, these are the East Coast bakers, and they have slightly different offerings, so I need to order from them as well. And then you'll get a third link from like a family member, and it's like, well, I gotta order some from them. Like, next thing you know, you have 45 boxes of cookies that aren't going to eat themselves, so you gotta
Oh
just
no!
you gotta eat them. So that's been a big
What you
part of my
gonna do?
life. Yeah, I just gotta eat them, I guess.
Excellent.
And then out, and then the only other thing I have going on, and this is kind of a more of a PR thing, is for no purpose. I've been doing some upgrades to Seanbot on Blue Sky. He's going to be a lot more intelligent now. Hopefully, instead of just kind of pushing some of our favorite pod friends and things like that, it's going to start pushing some things like new Star Wars content, whether that's books, comics, TV shows, and other cool, interesting articles. So hopefully, it'll become. The reason I built it was mainly for me, so I could have like a source of information that's just kind of predictable and a place to go. And so I'm trying to flesh that out a little bit, and so it's more enjoyable for other people. So yeah,
I
he
think it's enjoyable and very helpful for an awful lot of people, mate. Because in this little experimentation that you've been doing, you've actually become quite a valuable service to an awful lot of our friends as well. And um, you know as well as I, well, I hope you know that they appreciate what you do for them, because it's pretty mind blowing when you have an idea and the cogs start turning in your brain. It's pretty amazing what you can achieve, which benefits everyone, which is fantastic.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate that. That's all I got. That's all I'm doing. That's all I got over here.
So I've got a couple of corrections. So it's our week 5, and the second week of corrections, and I think this is going to be an ongoing theme going forward. So first of all, I made a comment around editing being equally as important as a key component of the filmmaking process, and I completely um, misnamed, of course, the our great Lord George Lucas, his first wife, and of course it was Marsha Lucas that helped edit A New Hope to make it the amazing amazingly grounded and fantastical storytelling that it was very much down to her editing skills. And I think I called her Melinda, or which I think was actually Harrison Ford's wife at some point as well. Anyway, the point being, I got her name wrong, and I've corrected that. Secondly, when I talked about War of the Worlds, and when we were talking about theme parks, and one of my favorite experiences was an experience in London, which was very much focused on the 1800s, but based on the soundtrack released in the 70s. And it was Jeff Wayne, not Jeff Love. Jeff Love is a composer, um, like Jeff Wayne, but Jeff Wayne is a funky composer, not a traditional composer like Jeff Love. So that's that. And then lastly, in episode 0, when we talked about anthology type of TV shows that really fired us up and we were quite inspired by. I mentioned a TV series on Prime called Tales the Loop, and it was inspired by, I believe at the time, a French artist whose name I couldn't remember. And luckily, our friend Craig jumped in, parachuted like a true trooper, and saved me. And it's actually a Swedish artist, not a French artist, gentleman called, and I'm going to completely butcher this, Simon Stellenhag. So if anyone knows the work of Simon Stellenhag, again, we talked about picturesque and rolling fields in, should we say, Central America, uh, uh, in the South somewhere, and mixed with a little bit of high tech or steampunk tank. That's based on that particular artist. I got it wrong, and thank you, Craig, for putting me right there. Already talked to you about going to the theatre at the weekend. I forgot to say we're actually going to see The Mousetrap, and The Mousetrap is a very famous Agatha Christie play that's never been released on media in any kind of way. Because the point being, I think it's it's the longest play that's been in the West End since the West End existed. So it's the most longest running play of this Agatha Christie murder mystery. Never ever found its way to the TV. Never ever found its way to the silver screen in any kind of way. Because the idea being is only the viewers or the people that go and see the play know the final outcome and who did it. And it's been going for 70, 80 years now, and it's a treat for Lucy to get us over the should we say some of the difficult stuff that we've been going on during the early months of the year. um Two other things have happened this week for me. I had about maybe 1 to 2 hours notice, and I joined our friends over at the Scruffy Looking Podcasters this week on Sunday because our friend Kev couldn't make it, and so I got a very quick call from our friend Chris. Said, "Do you fancy joining tonight?" So um, it was great to join those guys, and they've been extremely complimentary as to what we're doing here. Um, they'll learn, don't worry, that we're completely making it up as we go along. But it was really nice to hear from them and spend some time with them, and really, really and because I hadn't planned for it either, it felt like really quite natural to just join in their shtick rather than try in any way to contribute to it. So I really enjoyed it. And then lastly, obviously all of us in our little friendship group got together on Saturday evening as well, and we had a bit of a hangout on Discord, which I found amazing. If I'm perfectly honest with you, it was lovely speaking and seeing people that I hadn't spoken or seen since properly since Celebration in 2023, and it was lovely just catching up with them, and it felt quite natural. It felt as if it only been yesterday since I last spoke to them, so that was really really nice, and that's kind of um, been my week. What I'm watching at the moment, it's been really, really, and I'll flip this back to you in a second. What I've been watching hasn't really changed much from. Oh no, crikey, no, not even going there at the moment. News. Well, I don't know. Which way do you want to do it? Do we have a plan,
Let's just keep.
or we do not have a
Let's just
plan?
roll with what we're watching and stuff, and then
Okay,
we can
what
save
we're
our big
watching.
one for the end.
Yeah. What we're watching. Okay, so For All Mankind, it's been a really quiet week for me this week. I've been trying to play catch up an awful lot of work that I missed over the previous couple of weeks because of everything that's been going on. Carrying on with For All Mankind, nearly finished season 3, but still on season 3. So I haven't made much progress, but we're approaching the end now. Not as good as seasons 1 and 2, I have to say, and that's because it's now gone a little bit more fantastical. So it's gone beyond the kind of history as we knew it, or the perverse skew on history as we knew it, towards the travel beyond the moon and more future tech, albeit it's still being in the 90s and the 2000s. But so I'm missing a little bit of that skewed history approach to the whole thing. Still a really really good story, greatly acted, and looking forward to putting this thing to bed. Had a night to myself last night, I think it was. Simply because there's so much stuff going on, and Lucy as well as myself trying to catch up on a few things. So I actually had the TV to myself last night. Had a little bit of nostalgia, and I watched The Thing with Kurt Russell. Hadn't seen that for absolutely years, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. What was really really interesting, was how timeless the whole thing is. And what a classic it is, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. But what made me laugh the most was the canned foley in the whole thing. I don't know if you've ever noticed it. Bearing in mind the soundtrack is amazing and it's really really deep and dark and foreboding. Bearing in mind that the effects at the time were really quite revolutionary, and fantastic, and quite frankly stomach churning, some of it. But the foley in the background. So, for example, when a window pane is smashed, or when a revolver is fired, it's straight out of the 50s and 60s. And that I found for the first time ever from having not watched it for quite a few years. I found that quite bizarre, but also quite funny as well. But I thoroughly enjoyed that. And the reason why I'm watching it is I didn't realize there's a prequel to The Thing called The Thing. It's not called anything else but The Thing, and it's a prequel to the Thing, and it's based on the story of the Norwegian outpost that originally found the the wrecked flying saucer from 100 that had been buried in ice for 100,000 years, and I didn't know it existed. And it's not that old. It's only about 10, 15 years old. So I was looking forward. I'm looking forward to seeing that, but at the same time, wanting to catch up on that first. So that's essentially what I'm watching. Still catching up as a family collectively on Scrubs, and of course in the background while I'm cooking, Battlestar Galactica reboot. Um, three last things, I promise you. The first being was that there are three pods this week that I thought were fantastic. The first being that Geek Pod. Shout out to Catherine Neen, um, in that she had a really, really good, a really great actually pod this week, where she describes with with her buddy Matt. They talk about really good translations from the written page from novels to the silver screen, and they go into quite a lot of depth, especially around some of the novels and the narrative that either of them both of them enjoy. Matt's area, he likes an awful lot of his Kubrick and awful lot of his uh I'm trying to think. Come on, Stephen King, and in the meantime, obviously, Catherine likes an awful lot of her classics, and it's a really really good conversation. By the way, and if she listens, I hope she does listen. I'm calling it out now. We had the idea first, in that we're looking at this moment in time to look at comics, games, and novels, and look and having a discussion around their translation to silver screen. But I do concede you guys did a really good job, so we'll cut out novels from that idea, which probably would save us an awful lot of waffling anyway, because as we all know, I don't read that much anyway. So no, but I really do recommend it. All joking aside, I really do recommend it because it's a really really good listen. Also this week as well was Star Wars Spelt Out. So Star Wars Spelt Out. So Josh had our friend Buddy Hawes on that pod, and that was delightful because you could tell that. I mean, Hawes is Hawes, and God, you get him on a podcast and he just slips in. It's like a pair. It's like he's wearing he slips into a pod and into a narrative and a conversation like a pair of well worn slippers. I mean, it's really slick, and they go into an awful lot of collecting, and their background around collecting and where they are at the moment. And Josh is obviously on the bandwagon to try and complete the original vintage run, including the final 17, the final 12, the final I can't remember anyway. Point being is that it's a really really good listen. And another shout out to Star Wars Spelt Out is that Josh has recently set up a YouTube channel as well. So an awful lot of this stuff, of these experiences, but not only the pod itself, but also the stuff he's buying in vintage form, he's actually putting it online as well in YouTube to show everyone what he's buying in, and it's really really cool stuff. I love that kind of stuff, the unpacking of boxes and what kind of treasures the guys finding. It's really compelling watching. And then lastly, something you put me onto with our buddy Rick. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I can jump in there. Um, uh, Good friend Rick Villanueva over at Jam Transmissions gave us a lovely shout out at the end of their most recent episode. Big thanks to Rick. Rick's a good dude. I think his podcast is a good listen, especially if you don't have if you have an interest in the books and comics, but also if you have an interest but don't have time. Um, I think it helps a lot to hear their kind of spoiler free reviews and then the spoiler full reviews, um, especially for people who maybe don't have time to read or you're just trying to find that spark to get back into reading. Um, that podcast has been killer. And big shout out to Rick. Thank you. Thanks for calling us out and all the kind words. It's been really cool.
I have to say to Rick, thank you very much indeed. We don't know each other particularly well, and I've only feel as if I'm getting to know him in recent weeks, because of what we're doing here, but also um, our paths are starting to cross, and I've now started subscribing to Down Transition myself, and I have to say, I listened to the episode that you told me that he'd called us out on, not knowing, not understanding, or maybe comprehending that the guy had his own pod as well. And it's a really smart podcast. It's a really, really clever podcast. The guy knows exactly what he's doing and what he wants to be. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. So, Rick, if you're listening, thank you for becoming my friend on the social media stuff. And thank you for the call out. And I'm loving what I'm hearing so far on the pod as well. So thank you very much. Okay, so what about yourself, my friend? Anything else that I've missed that you might be watching, apart from maybe our main discussion point today? Anything else you're watching? How is Masters of the Air going? Is it still going? Is it still going?
It's still going. It's the story is kind of how I expected. It's completely off the rails now, and I'm loving it.
Good.
It kind of follows that same formula where it's like, here's all the people, and
Yeah.
this is not a spoiler, and now they're gone, and here's a couple. And so and it's actually taking some directions that I was not expecting. This most recent episode was really quite good in terms of cinematography. Like when they first start out, like these are all kind of like obviously non-spoiler pieces. It's like in the beginning, there's a lot of airplanes and you're kind of can't keep track of what's going on. It's like, okay, there's an airplane. Now that airplane's gone. Here's another airplane. Yeah. This one really this last episode really honed in on a single airplane and a single aircraft. And so it kind of took some of the chaos out of it. And it was shot really well. I mean, I don't know how much of it's real, but assume like you get what I'm saying. Like the cinematography was really, really quite interesting and kind of a break from the normal. But no, I'm loving it. It's good. I'm excited for the next couple episodes.
So does that make it more a little bit like Memphis Belle, which is more of a, they singled out a particular plane which made you kind of experience the characters and the individuals involved in crewing that plane and their story and the rest of it, as opposed to
this most recent episode. This most recent episode. So it kind of honed in on them and their individual experience of like what was going on and kind of more of the less action fighter dog fighting kind of cut and more of a let's sit with it, similar to what we talked about last week with like what the Marvels lacked of, like it gave it space. You could see people's emotions and reactions, and it's not just boom, 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 boom. It was, you could see their thought process and like things like that. I don't know. It was just, it was a nice separation from maybe the norm. It was pretty cool.
Cool.
Outside of that, we did watch 2 movies this week. One of them was an Oscar nom. And that one is Anatomy of a Fall. Similar. So when I talked about watching Past Lives and the things it made me feel and how that made me really happy and like I really enjoyed that movie. Anatomy of a Fall is kind of like the same caliber of movie, but it's all the feelings that I don't want to feel, and don't want. It was a really good movie. I do not ever want to watch it again. But it was a good. Yeah, I mean, I can't really talk about it much because it's a spoiler, but it was interesting. It's one of those movies that's kind of a thought piece.
Just give me the premise, because there's so much to watch. And
so the premise is there is a wife, and they have a blind son, her and her husband. And the beginning of the movie starts out maybe a couple minutes in, the husband dies. He
Oh
he's
fuck.
he's found outside in the snow, and the whole movie is trying to figure out how did he die, and like kind of going through that. But it's not like a fun Knives Out kind of like, oh, who done it. It's more of a um introspection into the the roles we play in society, how the court and public sees you, um not knowing the full picture, so like trying to read people and their intentions, and like
Yeah.
the interconnection of like relationships and how dirty those can be. But in private, that like you just know that's how it is. But then when exposed in a piece, like a narrow window, people can see that differently, and rake you over the coals or not.
Yeah.
And so it's a long romp in that world where it's just like kind of squirming on the couch, be like, yeah, I think I'm ready for this to be over and to have answers, because you don't know how it happened, so you're just kind of along for the ride and sitting in your own uncomfortable feelings or thoughts
Yeah.
or perceptions of how it's going down and how people are treated or treating others. And you're like, I do not like this. No thanks.
Oh,
Um,
dude, some of the best films I've ever watched, I could not go back to. You know, there's an awful lot of amazing acting accolades, awards for, you know, pieces of art and cinema that are well deserved. But I once you've seen them, you're kind of like, yeah, that's the reason why they got the award that they did. But I could, it's not one of those ones you stick in on the background for a bit of fun, is it? So yeah,
yeah.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean in terms of kind of it's worth watching. But no, it's on the list now. So you know, I'll get back to you. I'll get back to you.
the the other movie we watched is based on a book series that Madison's been reading recently, and it's called The Circle. The movie, so she enjoyed the book a lot because before we moved to here, we
Mhm.
actually lived in Silicon Valley, and so we're pretty familiar with kind of that culture, and it can maybe be a little too real at times. So like the TV show Silicon Valley, it was kind of like, this is life,
Yeah,
uncomfortable. But the
yeah.
the circle, the premise is like kind of like a Facebook kind of took over and like really
This
put
is the
cameras everywhere. And
it was made into a film with Tom Hanks, right?
Tom Hanks and Emma Watson, which was,
Emma Watson. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, Emma Watson's probably the only reason why I was like, yeah, okay, I'll watch it. I'll see what's.
yeah,
You
yeah,
have piqued my interest. The movie was kind of awful. It wasn't. Yeah, it was not good. Uh, it's like it started strong and then it just kind of immediately goes off the rails. And it's like
yeah.
you took, like, you knew where you wanted to go and you were like, crap, we don't have time. Like, let's just see what happens. So yeah, that was not good. I don't recommend it. Yeah, not for me. But also listen to a bunch of pods, and that's about it. Besides you know, the giant, the three giant elephants in the room. That's all I pretty much watched.
So going back to the sorry, I have to ask. So going back to the circle, Madison's really into the books, right? The books are
Uh,
worth reading.
yes. I will have to ask her about that. I mean, I know she
Okay,
just finished the second one, and
right.
it's one of those things. It's like, do you recommend it? Like, oh, I'm sucked into this. I'm sucked into
Well,
this, and I have to see it through. But do I recommend other people getting it? I don't know.
my attention to I'm a little bit. I mean, you mentioned it a couple of weeks back, so I feel as if I've got you've kind of given me the opportunity to also admit that an awful lot of my reading over the years has actually been kind of young adult reading, simply because it's almost like disposable. Do you understand what I mean? It's
Yeah,
not.
yeah,
It doesn't need an awful lot of brain power to get through some very
yeah.
good stories. One of those. My kids got me onto the Maze Runner. the
Mm.
Maze Runner. My kids got me into Harry Potter, or sorry, got me into reading Harry Potter. I don't feel as attached to that series as perhaps they do, but they also got me into, yeah, part of our bond, dad bonding with his kids, or trying to as best he can, moments. They got me into the Hunger Games, and then a spin-off of that was uh, Twilight, which I never ever. I got halfway through the first book and I could not finish. I could not go there. I wanted to bond with my daughters, and so that we could have a conversation about something that we'd experienced together, and I just couldn't get into Twilight, and they were at the right age at the right time when the films came out, exactly the right time for them. Um, when they were discovering themselves as young ladies, and I that was one step too far for me, and I couldn't go down there. But they did turn me on to the Maze Runner series, and I loved it. I really really enjoyed it. And then the films came out, and then there was some sort of really messed up thing that happened in the lead actor kind of got into a serious accident or had some problems, and they kind of just kind of threw out the last of the series of the films, and it was a bit disappointing because I felt that the novels actually themselves were stood up for themselves, and they were quite an interesting story about this kind of idea of the dystopian future, and the kids are kind of like the key to uh, the the continuation of the adults, and them finding a way forward. And yeah, no, sorry, it's a long-winded way of saying, if you could ask Madison if it's that's something that I can pursue and pick up with the girls, because we tend not to bond so much on the, should we say, the more harder narrative. We kind of just choose the popcorn books to kind of discuss together. That would be appreciated anyway.
I will do that. I will do that. And you also piqued my interest because I remember hearing something about that Maze Runner accident and looking at it now. Uh, the lead, while filming the looks like the sequel, uh, he was in a harness he was injured during a stunt where he's pulled off of a moving vehicle and hit by another one. He had concussions, facial fractures, and brain trauma, and so I think they were like, "Yeah, that's
Yeah,
brutal." Yeah,
I mean,
wow.
I believe they finished it. I think the last one I saw, they actually did finish the series, but it had that huge hiatus between releases that it kind of almost it kind of almost lost its way, if you know what I mean. It lost
Yeah, yeah.
its way.
It can.
Anyway,
It can put a damper on things for sure.
we've kind of covered. Oh no, sorry. There's one bit of news I've got. So news for us. Sorry for everyone, as you kind of guessed, folks. The news this week is really going to be all about the Bad Batch, and having our first, as this podcast is concerned, having our first Star Wars new series to talk about. But before we get there, there is one bit of news I picked up literally today, because I thought, God, it's a bit sad if we only talk about the what's on TV today. And that's Gareth Edwards, my favourite director, as you know, at the moment, famous for Rogue One, but most importantly for The Creator, which was a genius piece of filmmaking. Um, he's in talks apparently to make the next Jurassic World movie, which I find fascinating. And I really hope that they give him the creative freedom that he deserves in order to make it, because I think we saw with Rogue One. I mean, don't get me wrong, Rogue One is still and will be to this day my favorite Star Wars film post Disney acquisition, um, without a doubt, by a country mile. However, there were problems, as we all know, because of course we get to see too much of, perhaps sometimes, of how the sausage is made. It did face some issues, hence the reason why Tony Gilroy got involved. Um, the creator was very much his baby, and he was given full creative freedom, and I love it. It's I don't talk about it each week because, quite frankly, it is on in the background all the frigging time at my house because I love it. I love the way it's shot. I love the story of how it was shot. I love everything about that film, and as a result, my respect for Gareth, sorry for Gareth has gone through the roof. However, as I said, he has been approached by Amblin to take the next trilogy or start the next trilogy of Jurassic World films. And that's great because he's clearly getting the recognition that he needs to or should have had up until now as being a really, really good filmmaker. My only concern is that I really hope he doesn't have an executive on his shoulder compromising his creative control, not liking his style, wanting a little bit more reassurance as in relation to the investment they're putting in as a studio, and that he really is truly given the creative freedom that I hope he is. Now, Amblin obviously being owned by Spielberg, I really hope that Spielberg sees him as akin to the way that he used to film make, you know, quite a few decades ago, and will give him the opportunity to reinvent that franchise because I do like Jurassic Park. It's daft. It's stupid. I feel the same way about Jurassic Park as I do about kaiju movies. It's stupid, great monster fun. It's only when humans are involved, typically in Jurassic Park, when it gets a bit stupid, when it gets a bit daft. The other stuff is fantastic. So I really, really do hope Gareth is given the opportunity to not only do what he does best with monster movies, um, and his camera techniques, but also to make the human story a proper human story and not perhaps something that's um, a little bit more cheesy, um, in order to placate the studio. So that's the only news. That's the only additional news I've got for this week.
So for the Jurassic Park stuff or Jurassic World and Garrett stuff, it's like it's exciting, but a part of me, like, I feel torn because it's like, especially since they're kind of they're calling it like the start of the next Jurassic World trilogy, which, I mean, obviously that can change, but it's like, what, like, I appreciate it's kind of like on the nose aspects. Like, the last couple movies were a bit uh whatever, especially like the last one where it's like, we're going to bring everybody, like, you kind of felt like that was the culmination of it, like everybody's together. And so that to hear that they're kind of springing it up, it's like, I was hoping for like a reboot and kind of have it be like pick a lane. Like, is it going to be total
Mm,
camp, or is it going to be like
mm.
a slightly different universe of Planet of the Apes, but it's like the dinosaurs are coming. What are we gonna do? But
Yeah.
now it sounds like this is almost a continuation of like how the cynical side of me could just sit there and goes like, how do you get more? Like, how do you get another big corporation
Oh
that
shit.
makes expands it, and it's like, and expands it, it's like,
I,
now dinosaurs are everywhere, or is it Fast and the Furious? Is it, are we gonna have dinosaurs in space?
yeah.
Is it uh,
I must admit I hadn't heard that bit, so I really hope it's not a continuation
I mean, I
because
that's just kind of what I've seen online. I don't know if that's
I really
there's
hope not. I actually hope it really is. Um, they probably need to acknowledge what's come in the past, but but it does need something fresh, and I think that, I mean, in my mind, the way that Gareth did Godzilla and rebooted that whole thing, and without we you know we forget that the previous film before that was the Matthew Broderick film, and it was not good. It was not good at all, and it was and Gareth created, almost created a renaissance that was, sorry, introduced, established a renaissance which allowed us to kind of respect the original Japanese take on Godzilla, with a little bit of Hollywood cheese sprinkled on top. But the point being is it got us back to basics in that, it wasn't um it wasn't a dinosaur, it was a lizard. it's a gigantic lizard that is out there and crushing stuff. And the idea of the aesthetics of Godzilla being, you know, very akin to a guy in a rubber suit, which was the original aesthetics of, was fantastic. But the human story behind it was genuine, and it not being a cheesy something a little bit cheesy. So I really hope. Anyway, I could be completely wrong. There's no reason why it needs to be gratuitous. There's no reason why it needs to be lots of blood and guts. It can still be a good family flick, but it would be good to see it in the in in the way that Gareth kind of. And this is what I love. Sorry, we're going off at a tangent. We shouldn't be spending so much time on this, but his first blockbuster or his first movie, Monsters, was brilliant. In that, he's actually filming an awful lot of this destruction and everything that supposedly is down to these alien species that have landed on Earth or been or these monsters that are living in the Amazonian jungle, and they end up being benevolent, sorry, and they end up being quite peaceful. And the closing scenes of that movie is that actually is man is the problem, not so much the dinosaurs. And that, if he can bring that kind of emotion into it, the same way that I haven't felt about Jurassic Park since that very very first scene of the herd, the I don't know if it's a Brachiosaurus or a Diplodocus or whatever it is. That first shot that we see and of these amazingly graceful animals out there, dinosaurs, sorry, that are out there that are living in harmony with each other before the shit hits the fan. If he can do something like that and bring those kind of original emotions back, then and the human wonder that goes with that will be amazing. Sorry, I've drifted off, and because I'm thinking romantically about what I think Gareth could do if he's given his own creative reign.
That's good stuff, man. I like it. I do.
Thanks.
That's talking about the stuff we're passionate about, man. Like that's the tasty bits. That's the.
I just think he's better than. I just think it's such an oxymoron. It really is, but I just think he's better than blockbuster films. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. He's just better than doing blockbusters. He doesn't need. He doesn't. Ah, we just we deserve
if
more of Gareth. Yeah.
If Gareth is at Celebration and there's a panel, I expect you to be either front row or to be heard from throughout the entire auditorium.
Right, you've seen Catherine, the way that she behaves around Diego Luna. I'm going to be fanboying out to Gareth, even if he's two or three meeting halls away. I'll be shouting his name. Yeah, no, the guy's a genius. I love him to bits, and he's just got that humble, raw emotion. He's got that knowledge for a start. I mean, listening to him talking about how his knowledge on filmmaking is better than and VFX and SFX is better than pretty much anyone in the director's chair today, because he experienced it himself. It's his training. His whole attitude towards budgeting, and money management, and not essentially pissing money up against the wall in order to make a blockbuster because you can, and then running out of money because you've overspent, I think is phenomenal. That kind of maturity in terms of the way he approaches any kind of film, which essentially is a commercial product and people expect a return on their investment, I think is amazing. And then on top of that, you've got this kind of, I keep overusing the word, but this guerrilla style of filmmaking that he does, where he's the one behind the camera. He doesn't have a film crew of 10 people. He prefers it. He's the one with the lens, with the lens finder behind him. And I don't know. I just think it's frigging cool. He'll eventually need some help on this kind of stuff, but while he's young enough and enthusiastic enough to make the kind of movies that he is making at the moment, I say fair play, go for it.
So does that mean that you are or are not excited that they're releasing a 6-inch black series of him and his character in Rogue One? That may or may not be fake information. I'm just sneaking into this episode, like we talked
Well,
about.
I may already have a custom head for my my rebel fleet trooper that might be already bought and on its way to me to custom. I just can't paint the thing, but I'll save it for you to paint it for me. No, no, I won't be buying. I'm not.
I think there's
I'm a
people who are
fanboy,
closer to you who
but
can
I'm
paint
not
it
that
better
much
than
of
I
a
can.
fanboy. Okay, I'm a fanboy, mate, but I'm not that much of a fanboy. No, I won't be doing that. All right, let's talk about the news, the real news, and the real news is that
We are taking a road trip across the U.S. Woohoo!
we are no. 5 weeks ago we
Just,
started this
just tripping. Woohoo!
gig. Spin off. We can make it a franchise. We're we're turning this into a franchise now. We've now got I love it. Anyway,
We're gonna
sorry,
have
we are
two lemonade stands. Two lemonade stands.
we have the Bad Batch. The Bad Batch is back. Since we started this gig, 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago now, we've been, should we say, filling time, a little bit of time, talking about stuff that we like. And that won't stop, by the way, guys. We're going to carry that. We've got a list, in fact, in front of me at this moment in time of stuff that we want to talk about over the coming weeks. And it just keeps growing. But in the meantime, we've got a new Star Wars series that's come out. It's season 3 of the Bad Batch. The first 3 episodes landed today. And Sean, over to you, buddy. General impressions.
They were good. No,
Brilliant. Brilliant.
And that'll
Absolutely
be it.
brilliant.
No,
Good night,
I'm
guys. Thank
excited.
you.
Yeah. Welcome to Just Filling. Filling until the Bad Batch comes on. I really enjoyed them. I watched them this morning when I got up. 3 episodes as a premiere is at first I was like, that's a bit much, and then we're a little arrogant, just here you go, here's a bunch. But after watching them, I'm not gonna dive into like the deep stuff that we'll talk about in a minute, but I'll just kind of give high level impressions. Like, I really enjoyed that the first episode was once again given room to breathe. Like, it really emphasized the not just the time, but the monotony of kind of the losing track of time. Like, it wasn't super on the nose like some of the animation things can be. It's like you slowly see more of the ticks and stuff being drawn on the wall, and just kind of the subtle aging, the hair, the facial structure, the things like that, the things changing, and just really kind of giving a sense of like hopelessness in a lot of ways. That was really cool. I have some deeper questions, but I'd love to get your high level. Did you enjoy it? Are you feeling it? Are you excited?
I thought it was great.
Where are you at?
I thought it was great. I understand why they released 3, because as is always the way, they're looking for new subs. They're looking to keep the excitement going. Had they released the first episode, which actually I thought was the strongest out of all 3, if I'm perfectly honest with you, because it focused on Omega, I thought it was really, really good, and I thought it was some really, I mean, it's animation, but it's the most. Some of it was absolutely tear jerking for me, and we're going to that in a second. But no, I think it's a really, really strong start, and I love the idea that it and the 3 episodes that we'll talk about in a sec didn't end with an automatic conclusion that we're back to normal. There are, yes, they've made progress, but there's still a long way to go to be, to get to safety, and to reunite with the rest of the boys. Although the rest of the boys seems a lot fewer these days, it seemed really one of the things that seemed really strange to me, I know we'll talk about it later on, but was that it was just literally Wrecker and I was about to say Wrecker and Rambo, Wrecker and Hunter.
Hunter.
Yeah, it's really strange that it's just the two of them on that ship now, and of course it's only the two of them at the moment. And I kind of forgotten along the way it's how much that whole team have been compromised and what they went through in season two. No, I thought it was really good, and I can't think of a better opening episode than that first episode. It was so damn meaningful. It was actually, I would say, more poetic than an awful lot of live action. I'm not talking live action Star Wars. I'm talking live action fantasy and science fiction and fantasy that we see today. It really showed a heck of a lot of pain and the passing of time. Anyway, I loved it. Absolutely loved it. So I don't know how I want to do this. I mean, maybe we should have worked this out before we started recording. But hey, we are what we are. We are what we are. But I've got some thoughts on episode one. But I want to give you the chance to. I've actually haven't got an awful lot of thoughts on episode one, but I want to, do this respectfully between the two of us. What are you? What came out of the way? I mean, episode one was very much focused on Omega being on Mount Tantis and being used and working, if you like, for the establishment. And her, if you like, trying to hold on to the last spark of energy and resistance that she's got to try and get away, but obviously over time finding herself within the machine that is being part of the experimental, oh sorry, the science base that is Mount Tantis. Tell me your thoughts on episode one. And do you know what I haven't done either is I haven't actually brought the names of the episodes up. What was episode one called?
Confined.
I saw you type that. You just brought it up, didn't you?
No, I have it on my notes. It's episode one is
cool.
Confined. Episode two is Paths Unknown. Episode three is Shadows of Tantus.
Excellent.
I was actually trying to remember the name of the stupid bad guy who I despise more than life itself. Dr. Hemlock. It's like I'm like Wilcock, Wills.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, dude,
Yeah,
he is the worst.
I tell you what, he's a damn good voice actor, isn't he? He's the guy that was in Westworld, you know.
Yeah,
he was the guy that I can't remember the actor's name, but honestly, in terms of a slight but god damn it terrifying voice, he's got it off pat. So sorry, tell me about episode one. What do you think?
Well, just the final, like, because I think he is a big part of kind of episode one for me, of like just remembering how kind of genuinely terrifying he is. I think a big piece of that is the fact that I know when they record these voice actors, it's like, it's pretty, I imagine it's pretty standard. But with him, they're like, no, we're going to let him speak like really close to the mic and just, it's like he's in your ear. Even if he's across the room on the show and he's talking, it's like he's whispering in your ear the whole time, but really menacingly. And it's like, I don't like this. Please. Like, he's too close. He's not close, but I feel like he's breathing on my neck and I don't like it. So he does a really good job at what he does. With the rest of episode one, I think there isn't a lot to say about it because it was given room to breathe. They didn't try to pack too much in. They were really setting the stakes, and some people could probably, like, they obviously put out 3 because if you just release that first episode, people will piss and moan and be like, oh, excuse me, it's filler. Oh, it's filler. Nothing happened. It wasn't exciting. There was no pew pew, no lightsabers, whatever. But I thought that first episode was perfect because it literally it emphasizes wholly and completely that no, time has passed. Like, it's not good. It's not I've been here for 2 days and then the heist and we can get out and whatever. It's like it's still an animation, it's still an animated show. Like they still kind of telegraph things of like, this is foreshadowing. This is a potential escape route. This is whatever. Um, but I really
Well,
really enjoyed it, and I don't.
we know of live action that have taken a shorter route to being resolved, right? So, I mean, there are
Yeah.
certain. I mean, we are a positive podcast, and we will remain to be a positive podcast. But we're being really positive about the Bad Batch because there have been um, other examples of live action that have ended with a very traumatic situation, um, and a very heart wrenching situation that has been resolved by the next episode or halfway through the subsequent series for a different character, for example. You understand what I mean by that? It's like the idea of a cartoon of an animation having this kind of pacing. I think is phenomenal, and it was in my
Mhm.
notes. But I've got to compliment you on picking up Hemlock, because if you think about Star Wars, and typically the bad guys are moustache twirling bad guys. These guys are good. These guys are bad, and the bad guys, hey, are overtly bad. Um, it's no secret. My favorite live TV Star Wars is Andor, as it is with many people at the moment. And I'm getting the fact that they've got in live action TV, but also in animation as well, two very quiet, subdued, and perversely happy people in the work that they do, which they know hurts others, is is really clever, especially for an animation. So, for example, I've got down in my notes. I don't want to read them out too early, but Hemlock reminds me of Doctor Gorst. Is it Doctor Gorst, the guy that ends up um, torturing Bix, the guy that's really happy about his job? He captures Bix in oh sorry, Bix is captured and brought in for interrogation by the Imperial forces to find out, what's going on with Andor, what's this about the transmitter that she's got going on with the rebellion. um, and his means of torture is the screams of this alien species, of the children of the alien species that's being killed. Um, it's that kind of character. I mean, for me, Hemlock is that kind of character in that are they physically? Do they have any prowess physically? No, they don't. Do they have any skills as a pilot or a fighter or wielding a laser sword? No, they don't. They're just really intelligent people that have a really perverse view, or sorry, a perverse pride in their work. And I find that really fascinating. Well, I found it refreshing is probably the wrong word to use, but I found it amazing in Andor. But the fact that it's now that type of character is also in animation as well, which supposedly should be a young for a younger demographic, I find mind blowing, absolutely mind blowing. And yeah, I hate him. I absolutely hate him.
Well, I think a big part of it is like when you remove the mysticism of the source of evil from somebody, like, and you just get into that truly like driven, psychotic, uh, sociopathic kind of tendencies. It's like, yeah, the Emperor and Darth Vader and those other they're evil because of hate, or one could argue it's like, oh, it's the dark side of the Force influencing them, and especially somebody
Yeah,
like Darth Vader, it's like, especially after all the stories they told over all these years, it's like, okay, is he more of a victim of a mystical hate and negativity, dark side, whatever? But then you have people like, and then you, on the other hand, you have people like Thrawn, who it's like, okay, they're doing bad things in sometimes it's like, oh, as a means to an end to protect their people or other
yeah,
means necessary. And then you have people like Hemlock, who it's like they're kind of in that, so they're evil because of their sociopathic tendencies or just their sheer drive for power, success, status,
Ambition. Yeah, yeah,
and they are
yeah,
and they are willing to. It's what the things that they don't say and the things that they don't do that makes them even more terrifying. Like you don't like Darth Vader will kill a bunch of people because he rages and he's just like rah, and he can just kill them all. But somebody like Hemlock, it's like you don't see the rage in him, and it's not like he's not hurting people because of outbursts. It's
yeah.
methodical. It's like I don't care about the collateral damage or the direct damage. It's like it is a I believe in what I'm doing. This is intentional. It's methodical, and that is what makes it really creepy and terrifying. A very good villain from
Well,
my
it's a
side of
lot more
things.
relatable, right? It's a lot more relatable, and that's why it's really fucked up. It's
Yeah,
really
yeah.
really relatable. It's like shit. I know people like this, whereas you don't know what Dark Lord of the
Yeah.
Sith. So yeah. I'm with you. So I picked up. There's a couple of notes that I made, and what I did, which is really interesting, is I made them as I was watching the the episode. So they're questions. They're just questions that I wrote while I was watching them, which might have been answered in the next episode. So I'll just read it out. For episode 1, my first thought was: is Amiga force sensitive? Hence, that Nala Say is destroying her blood sample. So that was the first question I had. Second question, sorry, the second point I made was actually more of a statement than a question. Her making the straw doll, or the what's it called? The
The
doll is
Strahl.
no. There's a name for it. The straw doll is
I
the.
think
I'll get to it. I'll get to it.
something cat.
Anyway,
The something
no
cat.
no 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 no. It's
Toka
not
cat or
a cat.
something.
It's a Tuca doll. It's a Tuca doll. Anyway, point being is yeah, her making the straw Tuca doll melted my heart. Absolutely melted my heart because just the simple simplicity of its ear dropping and then her finding some more straw to stand it upright and then she hugged it. Just melted my heart. And then the last thing was I thought was really really clever that came over was the repetition, the repetition that went all the way
Mhm.
through that first episode of the dripping tap, the 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 procedure of walking past um, the clones that were being shipped off for the next stage. In particular, help me out here, guys. In particular,
Crosshair.
Crosshair. In particular, Crosshair, and him looking so beaten um, every single day. Then obviously go to work for Nulla Say, having the blood test destroyed and everything. And then it took me a while to realize her hair's grown. Her hair's grown. She's now got a ponytail. And it was that I didn't suss it out in the first viewing. I didn't suss it out immediately, and I thought that whole progression of time thing and showing that repetition, which of course was manifested with her drawing the Roman numerals on the wall to show how many days she'd been there and everything. Again, nice callback. Sorry to Force Awakens, but the point being is that there's an awful lot going on there, and yeah, no, I loved it. I really really did love it, and but my first point, and I guess my first point I made, which may well be answered in episode 3, still not sure we've answered it, is Omega Force sensitive. There is something with her her blood, sorry, that bonded with the DNA or the blood sample of the Force user that they're clearly mixing in those samples in that laboratory environment. So I don't know whether is she force sensitive or is what's being introduced to her blood is the force sensitive bit. Either way, it's retaining its M count, which I'm assuming is the metachlorian count. Um, like to know your thoughts on that.
So I have a thought, just one thought. But I think it's more of a wish and a hope. than a thought. I am hoping that she is not force sensitive.
I
And I'll
agree.
clarify that. I am hoping that with I hope they're throwing a curveball with people. It's like, oh, because MCOUT equals force sensitivity. It's like, well, no, it doesn't. Like, midichlorian count doesn't necessarily mean force sensitivity. I'm hoping they're just the crux of this is they're looking for a vessel, Project Necromancer and all that stuff. I'm hoping that she has a high M count so that they foresee her body and genes and whatever and blood as a good recipient for bad guy stuff, but not necessarily like, oh, she actually has active force capabilities. Like, I'm already not a huge fan of it. Like with Sabine in Ahsoka, like that was kind of, but like
Yeah.
the ship has sailed. It is. It feels like we're
Well,
going
it
down
came
that
out of
path of
nowhere as
like,
well.
oh,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like it feels like we're doing that Ray nobody kind of anybody can be a hero. Surprise, no, they can't. Uh, I hope we don't do that again. I hope it's more of like, no, they engineered uh Omega as a clone, as like an experiment to be kind of like the next generation, and her body can handle the raised M count and would be an ideal vessel, but not force sensitivity. That I really hope that's where it goes. Um, yeah.
So my thoughts. I agree with you. I agree with you because you wouldn't. I don't think she is force sensitive. I'm only picking that up because that's obviously the first thought I had, and then a lot of people, as you can imagine, online thinking, "Is she force sensitive?" I think they're introducing the force sensitivity into her blood, and it's to your
Mhm.
point, it's the actual receptacle. It's whether it actually works or not. So what you do is you introduce the the,
She's
the
type O blood. She's good for everybody.
but the you if you think about it, you this shell this shell this clone is a good receiver for this type of DNA or this type of modification to their DNA, because I think that I think that the the thing being introduced into them is a little bit like the search for Grogu's blood, for example, with the Mandalorian, in that we've got a good receiver. We just need the to influence that with the force DNA or M count. So I totally agree with that. I think it's about finding the right match, the right donor, um, as you would do with with today's surgical practices. I also think that the reason why it's not working with the clones as opposed to Omega is, don't forget, Omega and her brother are unaltered clones. So they haven't, but they don't have the growth acceleration. They don't have the age acceleration that the others do as well. So they're as close to being a uh, uh, they're a clone in that they've got the, if you like, the ability for genetic manipulation, because otherwise they wouldn't exist in the first place anyway. But they're, should we say, a purer version
Mhm.
of the original DNA or the original code, as opposed to perhaps the standard clones that have all of those, if you like, concentrates put into their DNA. So yeah, I'm totally in agreement with you.
Yeah, I think.
Oh, sorry.
Well, just to add to that really quick, I think you're right. Like I know I think Alpha is completely unaltered, no growth, speed ups, no enhancements. But I feel like Omega, just kind of the way Nala Se is acting, is like I feel like she wasn't given the enhancements, but I feel like maybe there was a perfected genetic improvements made, not necessarily battle enhancements and growth and those kind of things. But I feel like she's maybe like kind of like the perfected product that
Could be. Yeah,
was
yeah, could
created,
be. I mean,
and things kind of went away, and we'll see.
yeah, it could be. I mean, in my mind, I see Omega as 24 karat gold as opposed to 18 or 9 karat gold. It's that simple. It's because she's a purer version of the original of the original donor. But yeah, you could be right. They could have it could have been that they put more work into her and Boba. Don't know. No idea at all. Episode 2, mate. So we do episode 2. We leave Mount Tantus for a while, and we get to our boys. So we get to Wrecker and Rambo, and I'm not changing that now, by the way. We get to Wrecker and Rambo, and they're making strives to find her. What do you think?
So there's kind of three major things that I took out of this that are kind of my main thoughts. So the first one is you can't ignore the Predator handshake. I don't know when that went in or if it's like a nod, but that was cool with the like the clasp with the boys and stuff like that. I thought that was cool. Um, the fact that they've got young clones and they came across them, I thought that was cool. Totally unexpected.
Yeah,
Like middle, like teenage, what were they? Teenagers, early,
yeah.
late teens, middle teens. I thought that was kind of interesting. I knew like there's always going to be that one who's like, let's just bounce, like let's forget them, let's move on. But I'm glad that they didn't. Like I didn't want to have to do another 3 episode arc of like get the ship back. Not that I have a problem with those, but it's just like now's not the time. Now's not the time. We don't have go get the ship back time. But the big one for me is the 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 slither vines. The first thing I thought of when and I'd love to get your thoughts on this too. When I first saw them and they start talking about how it was an experiment that just kind of went awry, I'm like, ooh, is this like a are they trying to tie in like High Republic stuff? Are they bringing in like the Drengir kind of are they like reanimating them or kind of bringing that stuff into the more modern Star Wars times of like, oh, it's these plant creature I mean, I'm probably going to get some of this wrong cuz I haven't read all of the books, but like, oh, it's like living plant creature monster things. But then halfway through the episode it's like JK, it's kind of like a giant sarlacc in the swamp or whatever. It's like, okay, so yeah, are they kind of like making it like a sarlacc pit, or is
That
it
was
just
a
a
sarlacc,
coincidence that
right? That was a sarlacc.
or am I thinking of two different things? Like, are the vine creatures different from the giant sarlacc mouth in the ground? Like
Well,
now
but
I'm
he did say it's something different. Hunter did say
uh
it's something different. So I'm guessing. I mean, my thoughts were thoughts on that sarlacc was, wow, that's a big sarlacc. And the reason why I thought it was a sarlacc though was because the sarlacc that's in, oh god, please don't roll your eyes, but in the Force Unleashed video game, um, it looks like that sarlacc. It's fucking huge, absolutely huge, and a lot more slimy and a lot more less kind of rubbery tentacles. More, the tentacles are friggin' huge, absolutely huge, and hence the reason why I've always thought that if that is the way is that's the size that sarlaccs grow to, maybe just maybe, um, the sarlacc in the Dune Sea was quite a baby actually. I don't know. I don't know. But I kind of took it as being a sarlacc. But if it is part of the Slithervines, either way, maybe Slithervines are part of the Sarlacc. It's grown so big that it actually becomes part of the deforestation that's going on there. No idea, but I did like it though. I thought it looked trick, especially when that very last thermal detonator um, started tinkering around and making those noises as it was bouncing off its teeth. I thought that was really really clever.
yeah, that was nice. But I thought the action and stuff was cool. I did get distracted for a part of the episode. Like this was kind of the less serious episode, obviously for me. Um, when when they're like, "Oh, we have a power source," and you see Wrecker like throw the Gonk droid on his back. I'm like, man, I really want like a home battery backup system. Like I've been thinking about those for a long time, but never done it. But it's like, man, I want one, but I want to like mod it to look like a Gonk droid, like standing outside, or
Yeah,
just like a
you have to.
generator and put it like in a shell. That's
You
like
have to.
that's and
You're
then I
the
had to
guy that
pause it because my mind went going crazy because I'm like, are they more like a generator or are they like a big battery? It's like I don't know. Like what is a gonk droid? I haven't gone to Wikipedia yet and like really dug into like what a gonk droid really is. Uh,
I
so
I
yeah, I got
I think
distracted by
that
that for a while.
I think the answer is yes to both questions. I think the answer
Fair.
is yes. It can be whatever you want it to be. So again, real time, typed it on my phone, which I'm reading out to you now in no particular order. Durand from season 2 took the over Sid's bar in season 2 with the oh god, what are they called? Come on. Anyway, he took over Sid's bar in season 2, so it's nice that we started the season 3 episode 2 with him um, with him with his mum, because they're a criminal syndicate in their own right, and the Bad Batch are doing a job for them, whereas the last time that they met, he was obviously on the offensive against the Bad Batch because they were aligned with Sid at the time. So that was really cool because, of course, the Pikes. I forgot the Pikes. The Pikes were the criminal syndicate that Durand had, the son with the cut off horn. He was the one that was kind of leading them, but they betrayed him, and so therefore ended up being saved actually by Omega. She took pity on the guy and got the Bad Batch to kind of save him and spare his life. So that was quite good. Clone Kids I've got written down here. So yeah, cool. We're aligned on that. Clone Kids I thought was quite good. I've got the next one I wrote down was Gonki. We're aligned on that. So yeah, I thought that was great. The fact that he was being used as a backpack by Wrecker, I thought was awesome. If there is not, I mean, let's face it, they've already done. You've had 2 seasons already, and Hasbro have done 2 iterations of the Bad Batch already. I haven't got any of them because I can't go down that rabbit hole. But the fact is, there needs to be a record doll or a deluxe record doll with Gonki as a backpack on his back. If not, that they're throwing money away. Um, Sarlacc, I
I'll do
wrote
one
down here
better.
Sarlacc question mark. Sorry, carry on.
I think they should just make a backpack with a gonk droid on it. Like I don't even need the record doll. Just make a normal backpack with a gonk, like a gonk on your back. That's what I want.
What, that size?
No, not that big. I mean, like you know, have you?
actually for you and Madison, that would probably work. Actually, the amount of miles you guys put in, that probably would work.
I mean,
But yeah,
it
I know what you mean.
might. But I was thinking like those Yoda backpacks or Chewbacca backpacks,
Yeah,
where they're like
yeah, yeah,
straddling on
yeah.
top of your shoulders. But do like one where it's like a gonk droid, just like harnessed to your back.
There's someone we know that would say that's a good use of the license. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Um, so Sarlacc in question mark. Like you, I was like, is that a Sarlacc? What has he got to do with the? Has he got anything to do with the Slithervines? But my biggest takeaway from episode 2, and it's a personal thing, was I got major Halo vibes from that. Halo and the Flood. Have you played Halo?
Oh, I have.
Right.
Yes.
So the infestation of the Flood, those little slither vines that were walking off on 2 legs and then throwing themselves at the our heroes. They reminded me massive. I got massive Halo vibes from particular that particular moment. Initially, when they were in the corridors of the laboratory that had been sacked because it had been, bombarded from orbit. And they were originally there, and they started running off, and they were basically these big old pustular type of vegetable sacks with legs. And then they kind of scared them and then ran off. And then when they started attacking them by throwing themselves through the air, that's straight out of Halo. Believe me, it's straight out of Halo. Halo 3 in particular, when you escape, when you're on your way out, I can't remember which days it is, but on the way out, and these things are flying at you. You cover it. They cover you, and they just start attacking you. They remind him. I got massive Halo vibes from that moment. So, but I enjoyed it, and ultimately they found clues to where Omega had been set up, but they still don't have a location for Mount Tantis. So they are still looking at the end of season 2 to try and find a final location. They have a system, but not a location, which moves us on to episode 3, mate, which was the last episode that we were able to see in today's premiere. What did you think of episode 3?
That episode was awesome. The foreshadowing came back of like, okay, we're going to escape through the animal chute. That stuff kind of came true. But the most distracting thing, like I actually had to stop the episode for a minute and be like, I had to like rewind it and be like, okay, did that happen? Am I losing my mind? Was it something or was it not? But I sent you the picture on Discord. I'm
Yeah,
like,
you did.
who is that figure in the beginning of the episode? Like they showed him for like a half a second and then they just like, no, you're not going to find out today. I'm like, I haven't dug too deep. Like I just watched him. And so I'm like, does anybody like, is it Asajj? Is she on a bounty there to go get somebody? Is it some other person who's just a kind of come in and be a jerk later on? Or is it like, cause it was definitely called out. It's that black shadowy figure.
I don't know, mate. And I thought the same thing, although I didn't have as much visibility as you did on that. I have to say the lower proportion of that figure looks exactly like I don't know if you remember Boosh, so the bounty hunter that Leia borrowed his or her costume. So the idea of like the knee area, the knee to the lower calves being like a bandage material, and then going down. But then again, you look at the upper part of the body, and it's something completely different. I've no idea, but that's definitely not a trooper. It's definitely not an Imperial of any kind, because it's too. There's absolutely no uniform.
It looks like a slim version of Kane and Jarrus, like the mask and the markings. So when I first saw it, I was like, what the hell is that? But then it's like, okay, who'd be wearing a helmet that kind of completely covers them? And the only vibe I can get from it's like it has to be Asajj, just with like the angular. But like the body shape is different. So maybe it's another clone who's been turned, maybe or something.
I
if it's
don't
tech,
know.
if it's tech, I'm gonna be pissed.
The physicality. Yeah, me too, buddy. The physicality seems a bit weird. On face value, which is the wrong thing to do in this day and age, it's a very masculine looking body. Bearing in mind what we saw of the Asajj Ventress design in the trailer, that's what I'm trying to say. Without trying to say anything else, it's just the physicality looks very, very different. And I could be wrong. It might be a kind of deceiving kind of moment. But sorry, carry on.
Now that we've talked through it,
hole, please.
Now that we've talked through it a little bit, and I have it pulled up on my phone. I'm just sitting here just staring at it while I was listening to you talk. It's like, dude, I've now switched sides, and I think this is not a reanimated, but a cobbled together tech that has been.
Shit.
I bet some of that is droid. I bet that's why the legs look so weird. Like I know some of it's shading. Like the legs are the same. They're both that white, like long sock and bottom. And then like, I bet Like I could see this being Tech. Like if I just put my thumb over the helmet,
Yeah,
it's like the same proportions. It's like, and
yeah,
that,
because Tech was leaner than some of the other guys. Um, yeah, no, I can see it. I can see it.
which would not be great unless they got something compelling to do with it. But it's like if they've got him, because so okay, so to go into this episode even deeper, what is in those vats that they showed the Emperor? Like in the when they opened it up, like, oh, here's this and this. It's like, are those the clones that they've been reprogramming, and then you finally break them down enough, or those the ones that had like okay blood, and so they're just kind of freezing them for now? Like, has Tech already gone through that because he was so broken, and he's just, or is he kind of like what Crosshair was? Like, I have a lot of questions about what.
I don't know. I don't know, dude. I mean, it's. I mean, what does Project Necromancer mean? This is the only episode that this is. This is. Isn't it funny how the animation is getting closer to the story of the sequel trilogy than actually the live animation did? Which I'm sure it's related. I'm sure it's all interconnected and everything. But the idea, the whole point of necromancy is bringing someone back from the dead.
Well,
Ultimately,
it's what
and
we talked about in episode 0, I believe it was. I
yeah,
truly
yeah,
believe that the stuff they're doing with Ahsoka and the Mando universe and this is all culminating in tying
yeah,
to the sequel trilogy. It's like Project
yeah,
Necromancer is the Emperor transferring his body into a capable vessel, like
yeah.
flat out.
Which
And
begs
I
the
think they're
question.
showing the efforts that it took to get there.
Which begs the question. Oh, I don't want to think about it at the moment. Let's talk about this in a few weeks' time. But I do think at the moment they're using science, and they haven't. They're not even investigating magic at the moment. Um, or are
Until we
they?
get to Ahsoka.
Because Asajj Ventress. Yeah, but think about it. This is before. I mean, this is a few years after Order 66. This is before the OT, whereas Ahsoka is 5-6 years after the OT. So, uh, does is this the Empire's first attempts at trying to create the vessel, the perfect vessel for Palpatine, and it doesn't go the right way, and therefore they need the Sith magic of what's going on at the moment in Ahsoka to kind of really close the circle on that, and for it to be the the final element to being able to to do what needs to be done. I don't know. Anyway,
I think
what scares me though? Sorry, I was just going to say what scares me is if they have to then move on to Night Sister magic. Is it because their perfect vessel being Omega is no longer available, and I hope she goes missing and has a happy life, or is she off the is she off the table
Well,
completely?
I think that assumes that there is continuity in terms of information collection and transference between
True.
these different attempts. I think what we're seeing is the various multiple attempts at achieving what Palpatine was hoping to achieve, but we're seeing them in real time, even though they were across different times of the timeline. Like, I
True.
think this is one of the first real successful ones where they're trying with clones and really trying to figure it out. And I think we saw in this episode that, oh, Omega is going to be a good vessel. And I think, but I don't think it means that, like, I'm not worried about Omega dying. I think what I have more faith in, like, that she's going to get away, but then the information that was collected about her is going to get lost, and the people who knew about it are going to be gone, like the bad guys,
Yeah.
like the data tapes, the Emery, whether she turns or not, Hemlock, rest in pieces, like all those who knew about this. And so I think that thread will be cut, and then the next attempt, wherever that is like, okay, here's this cobbled together information that was shared. How do we stand this up? And then, like with Ahsoka, like I think it's just I think there's all these different multi-pronged attempts. Like if we go back and talk about the stuff that was in like Aftermath, like I think that was kind of a planting a seed a little bit of like the Emperor doesn't just have one group working on one of his goals at once. He's got multiple tendrils going on at once, and like by any means necessary. And I think this is kind of a similar thing. It's like, oh, I'm worried
Yeah.
about Omega. It's like I think people aren't going to know who the hell Omega is when this show culminates, because her existence is going to be wiped from the memories of anybody who knew her or knew what she was to this, and hopefully gets to live out life as a child.
I
And
hope
there's
we see.
nobody looking for anymore because nobody knows.
I do hope. I do hope we see more of her though, because this is the last season, and I hope she does survive beyond it. And I do hope that we see a lot more of her journey because I think she's fucking amazing. I genuinely think that what could have been quite an annoying bratty type of um and continuously naive um um character has turned into something really quite special. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the relationship she's built with the boys is one thing, but also the unwavering compassion she's got for other people and sentient life around her. I think is phenomenal, and I really hope that. I know there's a lot of friends that we talk to, as especially the likes of Hawes and stuff. I really hope we get that moment where Boba gets to meet his sister, because I think it will be help his healing for a start as a person. I mean, good God, imagine somebody like that that's pretty much been cynical for the first 2/3 of his life, and in the last part, he's trying to make amends, albeit perhaps the wrong way, by running a criminal syndicate. But the point being is, imagine someone like that dropping into your life and changing your perspective on the way that you should be and the way you should conduct yourself. It would be bloody amazing, and I think there'll also be an awesome force to be reckoned with. Anyway, my
Well, I think
comments for sorry.
that's another justification for why she shouldn't be force sensitive. It's because if
Yeah, yeah. Well,
she's
yeah,
force sensitive, she
yeah,
needs to go become something. She can't be in the shadows
dude.
and take care of her clones and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've said this to you either on this pod or when we've been offline, and certainly to other people as well. It's a very, very crowded galaxy going into A New Hope. If she's another force sensitive person that just so happened to be offline or out of the picture when poor old Luke had to deal with everything on his own, I already struggle with the believability of all of these force sensitives being around and about there, and just giving it to Luke to look after on his own, without any uh, regret or any sense of responsibility from these people that perhaps know the force a little bit more than them. So I'm with you, mate. I sorry, more than him. So I'm with you. I really hope it's not yet another one of those, because it becomes a bit, if everyone's a force user, it kind of takes away the mysticism of the whole thing, and the force being special. And I know that everyone's got the force. It's a living, breathing um, entity that lives and surrounds us, and the rock, the cave, everywhere, yada 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 yada. But ultimately, only a certain few should be, in my mind, attuned enough to be able to manipulate it. Anyway, my notes from episode 3. I think I got a bit emotional by this time, because it wasn't particularly they weren't particularly astute or detailed notes. Basically, I've got Emperor, holy shit, was my first note. Very cool. Nala Say can't destroy sample because she's been taken away. Holy shit, what does this mean for Omega? And of course, we saw that eventually the testing process identified her blood as being a suitable donor for um, the M count, or the midichlorians, or the Jedi blood that was being put, or the Force user blood that was put into. Oh, hold that point. And then lastly was Project Necromancer. And on that point, and going back to my last point, whose sample do you think that they're trying to find a match with? Because I kept thinking, is part of the purge, all these Jedi and these Force users that the Emperor and Vader's sinister agents are traveling scouring the length and breadth of the galaxy to try and find. Are they using Force sensitives as the sample to find an appropriate donor that they can clone to be a receptacle for, or is it Palpatine's own blood? Do you reckon they're actually using a sample of Palpatine at this moment in
I
time?
think I think the easy answer is Palpatine, but I don't. I think the better and more sinister answer is they're using Force sensitive kids and stuff that they're collecting throughout the universe.
Got it. Okay. Okay.
Which is horrifying.
I'm just wondering why he's turning up. Why at that moment did Sheev turn up? And I'm wondering if it was a little bit like when you go give blood you go to your local, your monthly donor, your monthly blood donation. And he was just turning up. Okay, I'm going to question you on the project we are at the moment. In the meantime, here's a pint of blood.
But I think the key
get me
is
a coffee
like,
and a biscuit.
I've had this inkling in the back of my mind ever since the Bad Batch started, and we've kind of started seeing the path of where it goes. Is I could be completely wrong in this. I just think things and never look them up. But it's like I can't help but feel like there's a connection to like the Death Troopers in some way, shape, or form. Like I want to know what's in those vats, or like the vault that Hemlock and the Emperor were looking at, like, and it opened up and it was all glowing. It's like, oh, like these are some specimens, or like, are those ones that have like had semi-positive results and they're going to be like future subjects that could be tested even further? And then maybe some of those don't go super great. Like, I don't know why I have this feeling that there's a connection to Death Troopers, because we know that they were like manipulated and augmented and all messed up underneath. But
Do you know
I
what?
just feel like there's got to be a connection.
I genuinely think you are absolutely 100% right. And the reason why is I was trying to work out, what does Project Necromancer mean? And I missed this. Or if I didn't miss it, I'd forgotten it. Project Necromancer is not exclusive to the Bad Batch. It was actually mentioned in season 3 of The Mandalorian. And I quote Captain Pelion, who is the deputy to Admiral Thrawn. If you remember the meeting of the Dark Council, the Shadow Collective. What's it called? It's called the. Anyway, when they all get together, and half of them are on hologram.
The
Captain
Doom
Pelion
Zoom
says, he says Grand Admiral's return, Thrawn's return, will herald in the re-emergence of our military and provide Commandant Hux, obviously Hux's dad, enough time to deliver on Project Necromancer. So, what begs the question, what does Grand Admiral Thrawn's return mean? What is he bringing with him? It's got to be dark. It's got to be Dark Sister magic. It's got to be. Oh, sorry, Night Sister magic. It's got to be. So I think you're right. I think you're spot on.
How messed up would it be if way from now, like not close to this time period, but closer to the Ahsoka period? What if Asajj or another Night Sister is captured and these similar tests are done on her, and they're like, oh, Night Sisters are good vessels, so send Thrawn out to go get them, or not? I mean, don't send him to go get him, because obviously he got taken there by whales.
And we talked about this a couple of weeks back. But we talked about how can Asajj come back? maybe the first experiment of necromancy, of bringing the body back, forget the force sensitivity at the moment, but bringing the body back
Yeah.
was on a vessel like a Sage Ventress. It's a bit, I mean,
We're off the rails at this point. We're rolling down our own path.
but not, I mean, it's feasible, but it would be a little bit close to home. Oh, I just so happen to have a night sister here that but it could be. I mean, I know that, maybe we don't like it sometimes, but they do like to connect the dots. Everyone's pretty much related.
And I do think all of this is connected. Like I think they can't help themselves. Like this is I'm saying this
Yeah.
positively. It's like, okay, let's not make everybody related, but everything is still going to be connected somehow. Like, and I think all of this is going to start tying together. Like it's still too early to start seeing,
Mm.
like especially how things like Skeleton Crew and some of these others really start piecing in. But I do think it's all kind of, there's an element where it's like it's all going to justify and make, it's all going to sweeten the sequel trilogy for sure.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there's an underlying story goal there of like, hey, we got to like, I don't know, I can't help but feel like it's a little bit like work at times, where it's like, hey,
Yeah.
we've got this like kind of sucky bad decisions on this software project. We can't undo them. You just have to like build up around it to like make it do what we want. And so it's like maybe there
Yeah.
were story decisions you can't undo. We can't just wipe it clean. So we got to like build up around it. I feel like there's a big initiative with all these shows to kind of support and build a foundation for that. Um, it's exciting to see. I'm hoping we're right. I hope it's all tied together because if not, we're gonna be like, I feel like I'm like that meme where it's always Sunny. He's like drawing, like he's got the lines drawn everywhere. It's like, look, it's
Yeah.
all connected. But it's like,
Yeah.
no, but it's
Yeah.
all just nothing.
Yeah. Well, we had that in season 3 of Mando, right? But again, that there might be some, how can I say, in the interest of being positive, there may actually be some um explanation for Gideon's story. He may well have just stolen the plan that was always the plan, or the what am I trying to say? He might have stolen the, well, he might have just used the process that had already been established for Palpatine, but for more, self-serving means. And that may well
Yeah,
be,
I think he was
it may
trying
well
to
be as
rise above
simple
his
as that.
station.
Yeah, it may well be as simple as that, in which case fine, no worries.
Yeah, he was trying to bypass his chain of command and make a jump to be higher than what he currently was and take
Yeah.
control. And we only saw that narrow window because that's how Mando and Grogu get introduced.
Mhm.
But it's part of a larger tree that is all intertwining, and we're seeing all the other initiatives maybe more successful and some others aren't. But I think what's interesting
Oh,
about the
dude.
Gideon one is we're seeing more of that, like it's like they're trying to like fast track it. And so you're seeing
Yeah.
more of the kind of the flawed, broken, and he's like, no, we're not, we're moving away from like cloning. We're going to force sensitive me and clones of me and robots and kind of self-serving and kind of twisting and manipulating that for self-serving purposes.
How cool is it though that a 3-episode animated series is getting us back to speculating again about what's happening and what's going on. I've missed this so much. I've missed it
Oh yeah,
so much. This is so cool.
I'm excited. I'm excited, except for if that figure is, I just hope that figure is not tech. Like I don't know why. I don't know.
Don't know, man. Don't know. And it may well be a Sarge. I don't know. I don't know.
Maybe it's a smoke monster.
Yeah, it might be. You never know. You never know. All right, brother. We're at an hour and 46. We've done it again. We've totally exceeded our time. Let's keep it to an hour every week. People will stay engaged. Yeah, let's do that.
And this
Well.
is when I encourage people to listen at 1.5 speed. And there you go. But it's an hour.
It's my fault every time. Honestly, stringing together a coherent sentence these days is so hard. Mate, thank you so much for your time. I love this every single week. I really, really appreciate you pulling all this together. Do you want to take us out?
Sure. Well, to add to that, I appreciate you taking the time to do this as well. You know, it's a lot of fun. I love having somebody to bounce the ideas off of. And with that, if you guys have, thank you for listening. If you have any thoughts or comments, or you just want to say that we're dumb, or if you have a correction for us, feel free to send us an email or voicemail. You can find it's at feedback at justshillin.com. You can also find links to that and everything else that we have on our website, justshillin.com. And with that, thanks again.
Stay safe, stay happy. Have a good evening. Cheers, guys.
Bye.